How does the Carolina Panthers free agency class grade out? Well, I'll tell you right here on the Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because tomorrow on Friday, the weekly Friday mailbag is back for another edition. Every single Friday throughout the offseason, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. So this is what you got to do. You got to either at me or DM me over on Twitter, or just simply at me on Blue Sky. No follow required. Just get those questions into me at Julian Council over on Twitter and Blue Sky. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Today will be the final day that we are going to spend talking about Panthers free agency for a total show. Unless something big happens in the coming weeks, we're going to focus on the draft solely starting on Monday. And please send in questions about free agency for tomorrow's mailbag. You got draft questions, you can send those in as well. But starting on Monday, that will be officially 1 month on the dot away from the start of 2025 NFL draft. We'll begin talking about the draft every single episode here on the show. So please, any free agency thoughts that you have, any questions you have about the free agency period for Carolina, I'll answer those tomorrow. And after that, it is on to the draft. Let's go ahead and talk about how this class grades out. I was looking over across the internet today, and I was looking at PFF. I was looking at CBS Sports. I was looking at ESPN. Honestly, I was just trying to come up with something to talk about, and I saw they have free agency grades. So I'm going to go over some of what the national outlets felt about the Carolina Panthers free agency class and then give you my overall grade. But before that, let's go back through all the offensive, defensive moves and kind of grade those and how I feel about them now that we are basically over with free agency here in Carolina. Starting off, of course, with the defense. Dan Morgan said that they had obvious needs on the defensive side of the ball 3 weeks ago at the scouting combine up in Indianapolis, and they attacked those from day one, really hour 2 of the legal negotiating period last Monday. And the first one I want to go over, and we're not going to talk about JC Horn, because that technically was not a free agency move. Yes, it happened right around the free agency period, but he was not a free agent. He was under contract, so we're not going to focus on him. We're going to focus on guys that were true free agents, whether they were coming from somewhere else or were here in Carolina last year and potentially going to go elsewhere. So looking at the first move I want to talk about, Trevon Moehrig signing a 3-year, $51 million deal here in Carolina. It was very clear that the Panthers were going to need and add a veteran safety out there on the market, as Xavier Woods was a free agent, had been the starter the last 3 years at one of the safety spots, as Nick Scott was a free agent and was not going to come back in a starting role in Carolina. Jordan Fuller, who's going down to Atlanta to play for the Falcons, he was expected to be that starter next to Xavier Woods, but he didn't really pan out due to injuries and then poor play once he was able to be healthy in the latter part of the season. Carolina needed someone who could be a sure tackler, someone who could bring a physicality and an attitude that's not been back there at that safety spot over the last couple of years, even though Woods has been a good player for them for the most part and has been known to be someone who's not afraid to, dare I say, lay the wood, and that has led to quite a few personal foul penalties. And some of them good, some of them bad, but you have the reputation, and typically that flag's going to come out. So you need somebody who is not going to bring that kind of physicality, but can be a sure tackler and can shore up that position moving forward. Trevon Moehrig, he does that. Had been a starter in Las Vegas, with the Raiders. And he is somebody who, I mean, once upon a time it was LA, but it's in Las Vegas, of course, where he's been playing. He comes in, and I look at this move as kind of like an A-. Like, I don't want to give anything too high of a mark at this point in time, because I want to see how things play out and kind of grading these things at this point in time, or I mean, it's just content. Basically, we're just trying to get things out there because it's like, what are we going to talk about at this point in time? There's no real news happening, and we spent most of last week talking about this. So you're just coming up with stuff at this point in time, and that's what I'm doing. That's what everyone else is doing as we are just trying to crawl our way until we get to really the meat of the draft season. Just being honest, but Trevon Moehrig, A-. I'll give him that grade, as I think it was necessary, and they got the kind of player that they were absolutely looking for. He was either going to be him or Javon Holland, and that works out. Edge rusher, a spot that absolutely Carolina needed to address by adding somebody. Now, there was talks about trading for Myles Garrett. There's talks about trading for Trey Hendrickson, who, as of this recording, is still available, but apparently Cincinnati has all this money all of a sudden to pay not just Trey Hendrickson potentially, but they were able to pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, BJ Hill. He's staying there in Cincinnati, and it looks like Trey Hendrickson, who's been their defense the last couple of years, is going to stick up there in Cincinnati. And by the way, Jamar Chase literally said, without saying it, that Cincinnati's boring. And that's part of the reason why he wanted to stay up there. And because, my quarterback's here. And yeah, he said how Cincinnati is a boring city, and that keeps him there, which is why probably all the Ohioans live down here in Charlotte now, along with all the people from Buffalo. Either way, getting to Patrick Jones, Carolina needed to add an upside kind of guy. Would have been nice. They could have add like a true number one type edge rusher if you want to qualify guys as that at that position. I really would have loved seeing Josh Sweat come here. He's going to Arizona to team up with his former defensive coordinator and Jonathan Gannon down there in the desert. So Carolina lands on Patrick Jones, very similar to what they were able to get last year. And DJ Wonnum had a career year last year of 7 sacks. He's on a 2-year, $15 million deal. Incentives can get up to $20 million. He comes in to team up with Jadeveon Clowney and with DJ Wonnum. And I do think that room has gotten better by adding Patrick Jones. I also know how much better that they've gotten in it. There's truly a guy who scares anyone in that room. So I'm looking at this as more of like a C, as far as, okay, I see the upside, but are you going to see the kind of production that you're hoping to get? And that's part of the reason why the incentives are in there. All right, defensive tackle. This was a spot that I really felt like Carolina needed to address more than any of the other pieces on the defense. Safety, clearly they need to get somebody, but defensive tackle, getting Derek Brown back, that helps. They need to get better guys around him, as Shai Tuttle had struggled the last couple of years when they had Nick Thurman in there, LeBron Ray, and then asking a lot of guys to step up in situations like Deshaun Williams that they should not have been in. They needed to get some true frontline guys that could be starters and rotate around Derek Brown moving forward. And Bobby Brown III, I was asked about this on Friday, what my favorite move has been. And so far, that is it. 3 years, $21 million deal, up to $27 million in incentives coming over from LA, of course. So he's going to have a connection to people on this staff like Jero Avero, like AC Carter as well. And I like this. Again, don't want to go too high. I'm giving this a B+ as far as it fills an immediate need as someone who can be a run stopper. And then they didn't stop there because they was trying to get Milton Williams. That landed in Bobby Brown III. It landed in Patrick Jones II. And it also landed in Tershawn Turk Wharton from Kansas City as a backup plan of all the money that they decided to not give Milton Williams. They signed him through a 3-year, $54 million max deal with $30 million guaranteed, led Kansas City in sacks last year, if we want to count the playoffs as well, of 8.5. And Carolina desperately needs as many guys as possible who can put pressure on the quarterback. And that's the hope that Turk Wharton can do that here in Carolina. And there were some grades out there that a couple of outlets gave him that they weren't necessarily, I guess, the highest grades, because I look at, let's see, not PFF, I'm looking at The Athletic. They gave it a C grade because they view him as more of a rotational player rather than a cornerstone. ESPN, they also had him graded as a, let's see, they gave him a C grade as well, saying they're going to be critical because there's a reason to be wary of signing Ward to a contract at this price point. He's coming off a nice season, but his 7% pass rush win rate at defensive tackle doesn't match sack production and ranked 34th out of 47 qualifiers. Okay, sure. They may have overpaid there, but it was a necessary position. So I'm going to give that a C+ as well, just based off like maybe the numbers aren't necessarily huge so far, but Carolina need to add some guys to that position, somebody who could be a rotational guy and could also be able to give you some pass rush ability on the interior and even move out to the edge. We're paying him potentially $54 million with $30 million guaranteed. That may be too much, but whatever. Christian Roseboom, 1-year deal worth $2 million. Another $1.5 million incentives. Linebacker going to come in here and compete with Josie Jewell and with Trevin Wallace. He's not quite sure what his role is going to be in Carolina this upcoming season. But with that amount of money that they're giving up, and the fact he's coming off of a 100+ tackle season, he adds an element to this defense where he's been in the scheme before, much like Josie Jewell a year ago, but they're paying him far less. I can't see how this is not anything other than just like a B signing, considering it's not a lot of money. It's a guy who's been a productive player before. There are still question marks of how good he really is going to be moving forward here in Carolina and beyond in the future. So I'll give that a B. And then Mike Jackson, 2 years, $14.5 million deal. And yes, this does count as a free agent deal, as he was a free agent in Carolina, retained him by paying him after I got off the air live on Monday a week ago. I love this. This to me is a B plus. To get somebody who you had traded for last year, we're hoping to come in and could fill in at that number 2 corner spot until Dane Jackson came back. And before Dane was even back, Dave Canales came out and said that, yeah, he's our starting corner opposite of JC, something that Dave wouldn't even do when it came to the quarterback. Like, who's going to be your quarterback moving forward? He was willing to say Mike Jackson. Now, this is his job. He's got it. And Mike's now back here in Carolina. He's found a home, and it's looking like for the next 2 years, that would be 3 years combined, he's going to be opposite of JC. So I really like that move and think that Carolina, just across the board defensively, they got a safety like they needed. They added to the defensive line. They added to it at the edge rusher spot, even though I don't think that they've done enough to necessarily get that to where it needs to be. Linebacker, added a veteran corner. They shored that up. You can't be upset about what they've done defensively so far. So those are the grades I'm giving out right now as far as the defensive signings Carolina's made throughout the free agency period. Offense didn't do a lot as far as bringing guys in, but they did retain some key pieces. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, Upwork.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats on unbeatable prices. Gametime Picks curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guaranteed. You can book with total confidence. Take guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Grading the Carolina Panthers free agency period, taking a look now at the offense, and not a ton of moves as far as bringing guys outside of Carolina to Carolina this offseason, but plenty of moves as far as retaining players. Let's focus on the one big move they did make as far as bringing in an outside player, and that was signing Rico Dowdle to a 1-year, $2.7 million base salary, and he can earn up to $6.25 million with incentives. Rico Dowdle, Asheville native, played at South Carolina. He's here now in Charlotte after having a 1,000-yard rushing season in Dallas and becoming the guy for them middle of that season when they decided, okay, no more Zeke, no more Dalvin Cook. Let's just go ahead and give the ball to the younger, more talented player at this point in time. And Rico Dowdle literally ran with it and had the best season of his career. And he's no longer there in Dallas, as everybody believes Cowboys are going to draft their running back in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft in a couple of weeks' time. And Rico probably knew that, and he said, why don't I move on, go back home to Carolina and sign with the Panthers and do the whole smash and dash 2.0 with Chuba and myself this upcoming season, something that Panther fans were hoping to see with Chuba and with Jonathan Brooks. But unfortunately, Brooks' career has not been able to get off the ground so far, as he's only played in a couple of games. Where he tore that same ACL he tore in November of 2023 when Carolina still didn't care. They drafted him as the first running back to go up the board, 46 overall, a year ago. He's going to miss the vast majority, if not all, of 2025 upcoming this season, but we're not going to worry about that. That is a 2026 problem, the health and status of Jonathan Brooks. This year, it's about Chuba, it's about Rico Dowdle, and when you look at that price tag, and you look at what he did last year and his age being under 30, how is that not an A grade? I don't want to get ahead of myself here, of course, because we'll go back like last year. I mean, well, not last year, but back in January when I was looking at Dan Morgan's first year as a general manager, I graded all of his free agent moves. And hell, next offseason, needing content, I'll do the same. So right now we're going to grade it because why not? But looking at it, and even if he goes out there and he doesn't do anything, and then you look at Chuba has another 1,000-yard rushing season, okay, you tried, you failed. Would it still be an A? No, but you only gave up $2.7 million. It's not like you had to trade for him. So how is this not a win-win-win for Carolina? That's an A grade to me, in my opinion, as far as the only guy that they went outside of Carolina to bring here to the Panthers. That's a great move, bringing Rico Dowdle home. Now, looking at the rest of the guys that were free agent signings technically that are remaining Carolina, Andy Dalton, he's coming back to be QB2 for another year, the third year in a row, signing a 2-year, $8 million deal that includes $6 million guaranteed and has a max value of $10 million. The hope is that he doesn't hit the max value. That only guarantee that he gets is the $6 million that's guaranteed, and that he can continue to be a mentor to Bryce, that if they need him week 3, which, I mean, I might be serious about this, y'all. You look at week 3, a couple years ago in Seattle, best passing game of the season. You look at week 3 last year, best passing game of the season outside of, I guess, what Bryce did week 18 in Atlanta. Why not just make him the week 3 starter? Put all of his incentives in that. I'm joking, of course, but I mean, the evidence is it's pretty clear, but Andy Dalton coming back, that's a great move for Carolina, obviously. They'd be able to keep that quarterback room intact. It's going to be him and Bryce, and also Jack Plummer's there still developing. That is the smart move. That's the right move. And it wasn't like the backup quarterback market was that attractive. Like, look at Indianapolis. And just look at the starting quarterback market. It's not great as is. Like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers still commodities people want. Kirk Cousins is being held hostage down there in Atlanta, and someone's probably going to trade for him. So it's not a great market. So backup wise, the market's going to be even worse. The starting quarterback market's not great. Like when Sam Darnold, who, yeah, had a great year, but come on, guys. Like, let's be real here. He is getting that much money. Then go ahead and just stick with the guy that you know and bring back Andy Dalton. So I like that move. Cade Mays had it on my to-do list for the offseason to tender Cade Mays. Carolina has done that. Tenders up to $3.263 million. I do not believe he signed it just yet. Other teams out there could sign him to a contract. And if he signs that offer sheet, Carolina will have to match or decide now we're good there. I'm guessing that no team's going to go out there and give Cade Mays an offer sheet that Carolina wouldn't want to match. But he's coming back, it looks like, and that's a smart thing to do. He started the final, I believe, 8 games for you last year after Austin Court was out for the season. And then when Icky was missing a couple weeks, they moved Brady Christensen to left tackle, and Cade held on to that job. And he at center, and he played really well in Munich against his former teammate, albeit for a short time, his former teammate Dexter Lawrence. He played well against Chris Jones after the bye. When the Kansas City came to town, he is really showing you what you want to see. And if you look at just the future, having a younger player with Bryce and those guys grow together, I would really like to see that if Cade Mays continues to hold on to that job. Tommy, oh yeah, by the way, grades. Andy Dalton, I give that, a B, like a B+. That was a smart move. Cade Mays, again, easy move. Give that a B+ as well here. Tommy Tremble, 2-year deal worth up to $16 million, including $8 million guaranteed. For the longest time, I've wanted Tremble to come back to Carolina. I see his value. It's not as a pass catcher. It's as a blocker. It's as a leader in the locker room and guy who can really lead by example for how hard he works and just how he can be a good run blocker. And he can complement what they have right now in JT Sanders. I do think they'll have to add to that position group once the draft rolls around. And because this is considered a deep tight end class, it's pretty much a no-brainer that Carolina will do that. So a 2-year deal worth up to $16 million. They can get out of it after a year if they wanted to. I figure that Tommy plays the entirety of this next 2-year deal. I look at that. That's to me, I mean, fine player, B minus kind of grade. Nothing to be upset about. I think everything to be kind of positive about when it comes to him. Austin Corbett, 1-year deal with the base value of $3 million, can make up to $7 million. I'm assuming that if he wins the job, he will be the starter if he can stay healthy for 17 weeks, and that will lead him to getting the $7 million. And much like Cade Mays, it's not like you're spending a lot of money. And this makes a lot of sense. And kind of like Rico Dowdle, you might be paying your starting center $3 million. Rico's not going to be your starting running back. He could, of course, knock on wood, that's not the case because of like injury. That's why it would happen. But if Austin Corbett is your starting center and his base value is $3 million, you can make up the $7 million. How can you be upset about that? So like, that's a B plus. Like, these are all very smart moves that Brant Tillis and Dan Morgan have made so far as retaining guys. And the one that really stunned me was Brady Christensen. 1 year, $2.787 million, fully guaranteed to come back and be a backup likely. Maybe he's going to get a chance to compete for a job at center. I know someone asked me, could he compete for a job at right tackle with Taylor Moton? I don't necessarily believe that's going to be the case. But again, like, the money that they're giving, how is this not anything other than like a B and above, a B plus, an A? Like, there's no negative to giving Brady Christensen that kind of money. I don't see it. Like, if you can find a negative, please let me know. But I don't see how that's not a positive in a big way for Carolina. So I really like a lot of the moves that they made when it came to retaining some of this talent. Like, Dalton's getting paid the most. Tommy's getting paid the most. And they needed to bring back a tight end. Dan said it was thin. He's someone solid player. You're not really worried about it. And you look at what they gave Ian Thomas a couple years ago compared to giving Tommy. It makes sense. All these deals make sense. So I don't have anything but a positive grade to give. Like, A is excellent. B is good. So like, all these are good. Like, Rico, excellent. The rest of them, B plus, whatever you want to call it, ain't a bad deal in there as far as what the offensive moves have been so far for Carolina this offseason throughout free agency. Now, how does the national media feel about things? We'll go over a couple of the grades that are out there from USA Today, CBS Sports, PFF, and hear what they had to say. And I'll give you my final grade as far as this free agency class goes in Carolina. Coming up here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, back here on Locked On Panthers. Going to give my final grades of the Carolina Panthers free agency class, but I want to look at what some of the national media outlets have to say. USA Today, CBS Sports, PFF, they gave out grades for the overall class. I'm sure other outlets did, but these are the ones that I could first find. These are the ones we're going to talk about. So it's USA Today. What do they have to say? They have Carolina a C+, saying you'd be forgiven for missing the news, but their secondary got a lot of attention. Cornerback J.C. Horn handsomely rewarded, while safety Trevon Moehrig was lured to Charlotte with a very strong deal relative to his position. GM Dan Morgan just missed out on a defensive tackle, Milton Williams, but the fallback plan produced defensive tackles Turk Wharton and Bobby Brown, plus edge rusher Patrick Jones. And while quarterback Bryce Young might have to wait on the draft for help, Rico Dowdle should make a nice splash as a third down back. So they say that, how's that a C+? The C+ is because they didn't get a receiver. And look, I know I said yesterday we won't talk about receiver. That's the first time I mentioned receiver, y'all. First time. So you can't yell at me if you've been yelling at me. I have no idea if people are yelling. I'm assuming someone's yelling because there's always someone complaining, which is fine. If someone wasn't complaining, then I feel like there would be something wrong. Like, there's got to be one dissenting voice in everything that you do in your life, I would think. Just because someone to keep you honest. Either way, the C+, I don't really see it, but okay. That was their reasoning. CBS Sports gave Carolina a B. All right, I understand that. The Panthers were busy on day one of free agency, primarily addressing the defensive side of the ball. They brought aboard defensive end Patrick Jones, along with defensive tackles Bobby Brown and Turk Wharton, which should bolster a defense that gave up the most yards per play, 6 yards on the dot in the NFL last season. Safety Trevon Moehrig also helps in regard in that secondary, which will continue to have J.C. Horn in it after he agreed to a massive extension with the club. Carolina was able to sign the top remaining free agent running back, Rico Dowdle, away from Dallas for the low-cost 1-year deal worth the $6.25 million to form an efficient running tandem alongside Chuba Hubbard. So, yeah, all right, they didn't get Milton Williams, but they got Bobby Brown. They got Turk Wharton. They used some of that money on Patrick Jones. They brought in Teron Morick, which they needed to do. They are including JC in all of this, and they gave it a B. PFF, they individually graded some of the players, and they gave it a B for Carolina. And, like, that's where I'm at. It's a B. Like, it's hard to give it an A overall until you see how they perform. It's different when you look at just deals like Rico Dowdle. Like, I don't know how that cannot be seen other than like a really good signing for a player who's coming off a 1,000-yard rushing season. And it's not like they're giving him a 4-year deal like Carolina gave Miles Sanders a couple of years ago. He was coming off a 1,000-yard season. He's coming off a Super Bowl appearance, coming off being a Pro Bowler. That's not Rico Dowdle, but he's coming off a career year in a place where they want to run the damn ball, and he did it. So for me, it's a B for Carolina. And that is fair, in my opinion. I think it's been good. They have hit on defensive tackle, 2 guys there. They've hit on edge. They've hit on linebacker. They've hit on corner by extending JC. You want to count that. Bringing back Mike Jackson as well. They got a safety. Every level of the defense was impacted. Defensive tackle, I feel like it's been enough. Linebacker, I think as far as those 3, they'll rotate. You're probably good there. Corner, would want to add someone in the draft, in my opinion. But right now, starters, you're good there. Safety, would probably need to add one again in the draft, but you could be good with the money and with Teron Morick, possibly. You're going to have to add somebody up there depth-wise. Outside linebacker, edge rusher, whatever you want to call it. No, not good enough in my opinion. But they did not neglect any piece of the defense at every single level. And I don't see how you don't say check, check, check. That's a good job. And then offensively, it's not like they needed to add a ton. Make sure your offensive line stays intact. And they did that better than I thought they would, because I did not foresee a scenario that Brady Christensen came back to Carolina, but he's here still in Carolina. And that's a really good move to have not just the top end guys, but to have the depth. And you saw last year, and you saw in 2023, the difference between having talent and depth and not. They didn't have high-end talent, but I think if they stay healthy in 23, they're probably fine. But Carolina didn't care about that. They said, let's go ahead and get better players and find guys in a better spot and then add depth, and we'll be much better in 24. And they were that. And now they want to carry over with continuity, depth, and talent and be a much better unit in 25. And I love that. Tommy's coming back. Tight end, still need to add to that spot. Running back, you're going to add probably a younger play in there, someone like that. Not a big deal. Like, I think they're good. Receiver, I still want to see it. Like, obviously, I do not right now look at like what they can go through a season with Leggett, with Coker and Thielen, and probably be fine. But they still need somebody else, in my opinion. And I can add a David Moore in there, but I still feel like long-term, they need to find someone else to put in that room. You don't have to force it, but I still would like to see another addition made. So overall, for me, it's a B. And every one of you should be very encouraged by what Dan Morgan, Brant Tills, and Dave Canales have done so far during free agency, and should be very excited what they're going to do the upcoming weeks as they lead up to the 2025 NFL Draft up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe and follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky, because tomorrow I answer your weekly Friday mailbag. So all you got to do is ask me a question by adding me or DMing me over on Twitter, or just adding me on Blue Sky, and I'll get to them tomorrow on the show. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Friday.